Oh, boys, this is going to be great. I want to introduce our speaker for today. Monica Rothger is visiting us from Kentucky, where she lives with her wife, Onyx, and their fur babies, Sky and Lewis. Yep, Sky and Lewis, not Lewis and Sky. She first walked into a Center for Spiritual Living back in 2001 and knew she was home. She had spent much of her life devoted to Catholicism, but realized that she wanted to belong to a community that was focused on spiritual experience rather than rigid dogma, and a community that welcomes everyone. CSL was her answer, and for the last 2 decades, Monica has been studying religious science, spirituality, and leadership, including 4 years of study with the Holmes Institute, and that's where she met Rev Bev. Monica is a licensed practitioner and works remotely supporting the Center for Spiritual Living Tampa Bay, and we are delighted to have her with us today. Monica, please.
Not really a hugger. I missed your name when you were introduced. Dennis. Yeah, Dennis, yeah. Oh, Janelle. Can we give it up for Janelle? I get nervous a little bit about these talks, and I don't know why I do, because Spirit kind of like takes over. Janelle, that could not have been any more aligned with about what I'm about to share, so thank you for that. That was a beautiful testimonial of listening to Spirit show up and figuring out what's yours to do and embracing it. So a few things, logistical things I want to get out of the way first. I always want to thank my wife, because last night at dinner I was pretty irritable because I was nervous, and you know, she's got to sit through all that, so she's always there to support me, so thank you, love. Appreciate you. And it's Rev Bev now, like fancy. We were in class together, and I am absolutely delighted that I could be here today. This is just a treat for me. And so thank you for the warm welcome. Oh, I have one more. I am friends with Karen Drucker. She's a close friend, and she's very jealous that I'm here and she's not, and so she says, please give them a hug for me. CSL Hawaii, give them a hug for me, tell them I love them, and know that they're in my prayers. So I won't give you a hug because I'm not a hugger, but you get the joke, yeah. Okay, so let me start out with, you know, why is it MLR, you know, and just a quick story behind that. When I was in 4th grade, I was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, well, I want to be president of the United States. I'm going to be the first woman to be president of the United States. And all the presidents that I liked went by their initials. JFK asked what you can do for your country. I said, I'm going to be the first president. And, you know, FDR signed the New Deal, LBJ. You know, MLK wasn't a president, but he had a dream. I had a dream, too. I was going to be the first president. So I figured if these guys went by their initials, I should go by my initials. That's why I went by MLR. You can call me Monica. I'm probably not going to be the first woman president of the United States. Not mine to do. But that's the story of my name. So I was in practitioner training, taking visioning class. Anybody taken visioning class yet? Yeah, everybody not. So during visioning, what came to me is this message of like, what's yours to do is you're going to be a cosmic comedian. And I didn't think I was very funny, but I thought that was pretty funny. But I started writing jokes. And that was about 8 years ago, and I've written one joke. That's not the joke. Yeah. So it's a participation joke, so if you will, knock knock. Who's there? God. God. Really? You've been waiting for God to knock your entire life. God knocks, and we say, God who? I am going to use God for the majority of this talk. I don't usually, but for the majority of the beginning of this talk, I'm going to use God. I usually use Spirit, and I hope you can allow me to use God today and just substitute whatever works for you. Fair enough? Deal? Okay. So, yeah, God who? It would surprise us if God came knocking, right? Because we don't necessarily expect God to talk to us. He talked to the ancient folks, right? He talked to Moses. God goes up on a mountain, and the bush lights on fire, and God speaks to Moses the Ten Commandments. It's pretty amazing. Joseph is going to divorce the unwed girl Mary, who's pregnant, because it's the honorable thing to do. I'm not sure why divorcing her is the honorable thing to do, but that's what they tell us. But then he had a dream, and God spoke to Joseph in a dream and said, marry her. She's going to have a son and name him Jesus. Muhammad goes into a cave. The angel Gabriel comes to him and speaks 77,433 words of the entire Quran. St. Paul, he's persecuting the people who are following Jesus. A flash of light comes, he gets knocked on his horse, blinded, and Jesus says to him, hey, Paul, what's up? Why are you picking on my people? And he was converted. Now, you may say, Paul got struck by lightning. Yeah, okay, maybe he did, but that lightning changed his life. That was probably God talking. So, in fact, God talked to a lot of people back in the day. Now, traditional religion would have us believe that suddenly, for no reason, God stopped talking to people. God doesn't talk to us anymore. God said, I'm finished. I'm tired. I'm done. You guys are on your own. I gave it to you all different ways. I gave you the Quran, the Torah, the Old Testament, New Testament. I even threw the Upanishads and the Vedas in there. It's all out there. You take it from here. I'm done. Does that sound right? No, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right to me. So I'm going to offer you today that Spirit does still send us messages. We set intentions, we have our thoughts, mental equivalents, ideas, and then Spirit goes to work creating our reality. And that includes communicating with us. So how do I know this is true? You've heard of this idea of immutability. Immutability, yes? Let me share it, right? So the idea of immutability is that God doesn't change. God's a constant. So, like, God didn't just chat it up with the ancients and then stop talking. He's the same in 2024 as she was in 1300. God doesn't change. Now, that makes sense to me as a religious scientist. Energy doesn't change. Matter doesn't. There's spiritual laws, and that's a spiritual law. God's constant. Which means then that if God was speaking to the ancient people, then it must be true that God's Spirit still speaks to us. So that's how I know it. I believe in this idea of immutability, and you had a great example of it this morning. A medical intuitive stood up in front of you and said, yeah, I was pretty much called by God in different messages and answered the calling of doing what's mine to do. The other way I know this is true is through experience. Those everyday miracles, mystical moments, little messages from Spirit. I like to call them divine breadcrumbs, where Spirit's kind of just leaving us a trail of what to do, little clues to guide us. There's no coincidence, right? Only divine synchronicities. That phone call you get, from an old friend at just the right moment, an inspirational poem that comes across your Facebook feed, a totem animal that crosses your path, and you go home and you look up what it means, and you're like, oh yeah, that's the exact message I needed today. A rainbow just at the right moment. So this morning, I was in the cafe by myself, and I was still anxious about this talk, and I was like reading it, because I have my notes. I'm like, okay, say a rainbow just at this right moment. And I look up, and there, across the bay from the hotel, was the perfect Hawaii rainbow. And now, of course, you may say, well, why? There's a rainbow every 10 minutes. God who? Yeah. And I was like, and I started crying a little bit, and I'm like, all right, I got the message. Get out of your way. Get out of your ego, right? They don't need you. You don't need to be anxious or nervous. Whatever's going to happen, Spirit speaking through you, and every person here is going to get whatever they're going to get out of this message today. So then I relaxed. Looked back up, gone. Rainbow's gone, right? So yeah, and it's a rainbow just at the right moment, or a song on the radio. My mom passed away in 2012, and she was my rock. She held our family together. She was amazing. She was my best friend, and she was a young 72 and was taken way too fast and way too soon, very unexpectedly. And so I took the gracious 7 days of bereavement that my company gave, and had to go back to work. And on the very first day I went back to work, I went to Starbucks to get a cup of coffee. And I'm standing in line, just pretty grief-stricken still, and I hear the music, the Starbucks music in the background. And I was like, wait, what? And I make it out, and it's that song by the Everly Brothers called Dream. Now, I think probably everybody in this group knows that song. It goes, dream, 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 dream. Whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream. And I was like, wow. You know that song, right? All I have to do is dream. But what you don't know is my parents were 50 years married, and that was their wedding song. That was their song. Of all the songs that could have been playing in Starbucks right at that moment, it was my parents' song. It doesn't stop there. I get to the counter. Now, tears are streaming down my eyes. I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm not alone. You're not gone. And so I say, I'll have a grande decaf almond milk latte. And I look up, and the barista's name is Laurie, Lori. And my mom's name is Lori. So yeah, Spirit speaks to us. We just got to be like open and listening to that billboard, that special encounter, that moment. And probably the most important one is our gut instinct. And you talked a lot about this, right? That heartfelt emotion, that interior message coming through that's like, okay, I'm being called to something. So I told you, Rev Bev and I were in ministerial class together at the Holmes Institute. You have to get a master's degree before you can become a minister, and you have to take 18 really pretty hard classes, a lot of papers to write, a lot of books to read on philosophy and leadership. And so I'm on the path to becoming a minister. I'm in my 17th class out of 18. Sat down to write a paper about quantum medicine. And I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I don't feel like I'm Rev MLR doesn't even sound good. Like Rev Bev sounds good, right? And so I quit. I was like, in my heart of hearts, I knew it was no longer mine to do. I knew that I was not called to become a minister, that being a practitioner and knowing and holding consciousness for this community, my community in Tampa Bay, and the entire organization, and just the whole planet, is what's mine to do. It's listening to that, that inner voice, that gut feeling of doing what's mine to do. So, how do we fine-tune this awareness? How do we know when Spirit's knocking? We have to practice, right? And that's what we do. We call it spiritual practice, right? Whether it's meditation or journaling or visioning, all of those spiritual practices, they help us fine-tune it so that we're aligned to that voice when Spirit calls. The frequency, we can hear it and receive it. So in every religion that I've studied, you can find mystics. You know, there were people like you and me who lost themselves in spirit, or maybe it's better said, they found themselves in spirit. And they get so aligned with spirit, they're so in touch with who they are, they become one. So they don't need an intermediary. Like, no billboards, direct line. Hello, spirit? You know, they're there. That's the mystics. Now, most of us don't have these hours to meditate, or we can't really isolate ourselves like monks, or go behind, you know, the convent like the cloistered Carmelites, or hide in a cave like a hermit. Our spiritual practice has to fit into everyday life, the life we lead today. You know, so what do? How can we live spiritual lives when we barely have time to, you know, do the laundry and grocery shop and go to work, right? Now, how do I be a mystic when I have to go to work? So this is where I might suggest we take a pause and breathe and just create one mystical moment a day. One moment where we feel absolutely connected to Spirit. And in that moment, we acknowledge that God is the source, that we're connected to source. We recognize it. And maybe that looks like, you know, you're driving to work and you see the sunrise. Or, you know, you notice a cardinal or whatever bird you might see on the island. And you cardinals? You have cardinals. Okay. Excellent. That's our state bird in Kentucky, you know. You notice a cardinal in a tree, and then you're like, oh, I'm connected to Spirit through that cardinal. It might be pausing when you hear church bells ringing and just for a moment of gratitude. It might be kissing your sleeping child's head. Good night. It could be looking in your dog's eyes and seeing the face of God. Any moment can be like a mystical moment if you pause and recognize source, Spirit. And in those moments, that's where you got to look for the miracle, the message, that voice of God. Now, of course, we can still have good old-fashioned, burning bush, God talks to us stories. I still believe that happens because I have an experience of that. Now, this is a true story. Before I started practitioner training, I was having some pretty serious spiritual dilemmas. Why are we here? What's the point? Big stuff. It was a little bit of dark night of the soul. You feel me? Yeah. So I went on a meditation retreat in southern Thailand. Alex and I were living in Thailand at the time. And at the retreat, we had just finished a group sharing, and we're sent off to do a silent retreat. And I was alone in my cabana, and I kind of fell asleep, but it was really into just a deep meditation. And I saw myself on a beach, and there were two wooden Adirondack-style chairs on the beach. And I felt like I was waiting for someone. And then in the distance, I saw a figure coming towards me. And the closer it got, I recognized it as Jesus. White gown, beard, Jesus, you know. It wasn't a surprise to me, though, because I grew up having Jesus as a close and loving friend. So as Jesus made his way to me, we settled into the chairs, and he said, you know, Monica, I've missed seeing you around. And I said, I know, I'll try and call more often. And we had a nice chat catching up. You know, how you catch up when Jesus shows up. And at the end of the chat, I said, I asked Jesus, I said, Jesus, is there anything I can do for you? And Jesus thought for a second and said, Monica, eat a peach. And he was gone. And in that moment, everything made sense. You see, Jesus can't eat a peach. He doesn't have a body. He needs me. Spirit needs me to express and experience itself. So to this day, I absolutely savor that first delicious, juicy, warm peach of the summer. And I don't get the hard one that comes out in like April, right? I wait till just in the middle of summer when I know it's the perfect ripeness, that sweet, juicy peach. And then the minute I sink my teeth into it, I know that I am connected to Spirit. I have a body to experience, to see, taste, smell, feel the pain of loss, the celebrations of joy, all of it. And when I eat that peach, I pause, and in that mystical moment, I am one. So that's my spiritual practice. It's how I lose myself in spirit. So I just invite you to pause throughout the day and find one mystical moment. One time you can just immerse yourself in that magic of life where you're lost in the joy of spirit. Overcome with awe. Oh my gosh, this island is amazing. I would just be like, mystical moment, mystical moment, mystical moment. Oh, rainbow, ocean. I mean, it would be a little bit, you're in a special place, a vortex, right? So I think the opportunity to have mystical moments here is plentiful. So I invite you to go to that awe-inspiring Pacific Ocean and watch a sunset or a sunrise, or have an ice cream cone, or swing on a park swing, and just listen. You know, listen for the knock knock. Who's there? God. And you say, God, I am so ready for you. I just knew you would come. My blessings for you. I think you have I could feel the specialness of this community you have, the history and where you're taking it. It's been an absolute honor to spend some time with you today. Know that I'll carry you in my heart as we go back to the mainland and in the year to come. Thank you so much.